Sunday, Nigella was a spaced-out zombie, it says, reporting the Grillo sisters. On the other hand, pro-Nigella is the Mail on Sunday, the defiant goddess. I've toughened up, and a story very much in her interests there. There are plenty of other stories too, I'm glad to say. The Sunday Mirror's got Lee Rigby, Lee Rigby's killer. It's a terrible story about him. Sunday Express, they're bunking up in Sandringham. The Lockerbie bombing 25th anniversary is coming up soon, and the Independent Sunday has gone with the Lockerbie story, Jim Swire, who's been campaigning for so long. The Sunday Times has Nick Clegg blocking any more curbs on migrants taking on the Prime Minister. We'll be talking to Vince Cable, I suspect, about that. And wonderful Susanna Reid there. Didn't make it to the final of Strictly, but there she is. I think they took that picture decision early in the evening, perhaps. And there's a bit more of Nigella wars there. And finally, The Observer taking a different line on Europe, as you'd expect. Bulgaria issues fierce rebuke to Cameron on migrants. You heard about that in the news. And the winner of Strictly, of course, Abbey. Now, as promised, brilliant paper reviewers today. Anna Soubry, you've picked the Nigella story, which is absolutely everywhere. Almost too much Nigella.
Oh, I think the whole thing is disgraceful. I mean, I think we're beginning to lose the plot in this country.
Par's disgraceful.
Because this started with an unfortunate divorce. And well, actually, no, that's not true. It started with a photograph of her being assaulted by her husband. And so out in public was played what should have been a very private and very distressing moment. As a result of that, they became divorced. These criminal proceedings had already begun back in 2012. And now we have had this playing out of this court case where Nigella Lawson quite properly complains that she feels that she's on trial. And I thought Rachel Johnson's piece made that very clear. Yes, in the Mail on Sunday, and I thought that Rachel Johnson must be hereditary, but she spoke great sense about it. But in all seriousness, she's Boris's sister. I just thought I'd get
talk sense.
I talk sense. But seriously, this is appalling. This woman is being, it's almost like the traditional, as we call it, feeding frenzy. And I just find it utterly appalling. And I think everybody should just shut up and leave them to.
Many of us agree with you, but of course there is an issue about middle-class drug taking. The Sunday Telegraph has had a go on that. Is it acceptable to take cocaine and cannabis if you're rich enough?
I must say, I'm quite relieved that she said her cocaine use was occasional, because I think Waitrose were worried there'd be a pre-Christmas rush after, like, Delia with her cranberries. But yeah, actually, Peter Preston said in The Observer that we're back to the days of the old news of the world, where they had a circulation of 8 million from just courtroom dramas, courtroom sensations, and they would just report the lurid details, and that's what it is. But I think you've made the point, and Rachel has made the point, that they started the case beforehand, before they were divorced. And so the question is, why did they put themselves through all this? And the answer was the judge, when this email came out from Charles Saatchi talking about Nigella, that the judge then ruled that all of this stuff about their domestic life was admissible. And at that point, then they should have pulled the plug. They should have pulled the plug and said, we're not going to court. Because as soon as it was clear...
But they couldn't, because I think she actually said that she didn't want to be there, but of course she was a prosecution witness. But I think there's another point which you want, and we both agree on this very much, that there's something very disturbing about the fact that Charles Saatchi has used a PR man who apparently has been used by the two now acquitted, the two sisters, who has put on his blog a copy of statements from them. This troubles me hugely.
This is in the Telegraph.
What is going on?
I'm going to say something I almost never say. That's enough Nigella.
Hooray.
Oh, right,
OK,
good.
and on to a very, very serious story, which you've been covering, of course, Jeremy, which is Syria.
Yes, Syria, and here in the Sunday Times there is the latest from the poor refugees in the camps. There's a picture of a child in a camp in Lebanon, and there's an appeal for money too, and the British government matches the money that's given to these kinds of people.
Put your hands in your pockets.
Because the thing is, while a lot of money has gone there, there's never enough, because the problem keeps getting worse. There are now, I think, getting on for 2 million Syrians who've fled as refugees, and within the country there are 6, 7, 8 million who've been displaced from their homes, often more than once, often more than 3 times. And that's in a country which was, what, about 23 million, I think, before all this started.
And that includes, of course, a lot of Christians. And I noticed in the Sunday Telegraph, Douglas Alexander, the Labour frontbencher, has said that the Labour Party should do God more and make more of the plight of Christians in Syria and the Middle East generally.
Yes, in the Syrian war, Christians tend to support Assad because they see him as the protector of minorities, and they're very worried about the way that jihadist groups, Al-Qaeda type groups, are taking over the opposition fight there, the armed opposition. But, you know, we have covered the Christian story, and I was in a Christian town called Malula, which is an ancient place where they still speak, the Christians speak Aramaic, the language apparently Jesus spoke, and that was under attack by Al-Qaeda type forces. And one of the very angry Christians there, who are very displeased by the way they feel the West has dumped them, said, look, 2,000 years ago, we sent you St. Paul to take you out of the darkness. What do you send us? Al-Qaeda.
That's a completely it's a rebuke you can't answer. It's true.
And, you know, of course, it's not just about Christians. Christians are a minority, but they have always traditionally had a very important place in Middle Eastern countries. And it's not just Syria. The Christian communities in Iraq have been very badly damaged, and also in Jerusalem itself. Christians in Jerusalem are in the main Palestinians, and they feel pushed out.
Well, let's turn to another aspect of Middle East. For like 25 years, as I said, since Lockerbie, Anna, and you've chosen a story from the Independent on Sunday.
I was surprised there hasn't been more coverage, actually, of the Lockerbie disaster, tragedy, terrible act of terrorism, the worst, I believe, that we've experienced in the United Kingdom. And it's on the front page of the Independent, and then inside there's this piece by Jim Swire, who many of us will remember, of course, as the father of one of the TCs who's campaigned.
He's been a tireless campaigner, hasn't he?
Yeah. And he says that there's still a continuing...
He says it.
He says he's his friend.
Yeah, and there's a cover-up.
And he says he's cover-up, and he'll continue, no doubt, to campaign. But I think it is right and proper that we should remember the Lockerbie bombing, because, of course, it was 25 years ago.
And it was a terrible scene. I was in Lockerbie that day. I went 25 years ago this morning. I was in Lockerbie. The town was, apart from the place where the wing had hit and caused this massive explosion, the town was just covered in bits of aeroplane. There were seats with bodies still in them, in roofs, things like that. It was horrendous.
Wasn't your sister GP?
My sister was the GP there at the time. I remember it very vividly indeed.
But the people, again, it's rather like Glasgow, you know, a couple of weeks ago, but the people responded wonderfully, and I think there was a simple act of kindness. I think they took the clothes of the victims and they washed and ironed them and sent them back to America. Just a simple, human...
Fine, good, old-fashioned
extraordinary.
And they behaved very well.
It was, yeah. Well, it still is a fine town.
Just a very moving...
Rory, let's go on to...
a lot of tributes to David Coleman, of course, who died yesterday, I think, and a very good one in the Daily Telegraph by Ian Chadband, their sports correspondent. He's making the point that the Coleman prided himself above all on being a journalist, and his finest hour, he said, was the 30 hours of almost continuous coverage at the Munich Olympics, where his journalistic background took over. But of course, we remember him from Spitting Image.
Balls, I'm afraid,
of course, Coleman balls, and there's a lot of Coleman balls. You know, there's he just can't believe what's not happening to him. This is Brendan Foster by himself with 20,000 people. I mean, there's so many of them. But also Spitting Image, and Chris Barry was the one who immortalised him on Spitting Image. Chris Barry was always the impersonator who did it. And funnily enough, they actually did a sketch once where Coleman's puppet was going to explode, and the real David Coleman would walk on amid the smoke and utter his catchphrase, "Quite remarkable." And he did it 3 times, and the producer said, "I'm sorry, that doesn't sound anything like you." And Chris's impression had actually overcome the reality. That's the story about a commentator turned national treasure. But in a lot of newspapers, but as I say, the Telegraph, a very good one.
Right, back to tough stuff in the wider world. Jeremy, that's your role in all of this. South Sudan you've chosen, again from the Independent on Sunday.
Yeah, South Sudan, campaigners warning about the fact that South Sudan is very oil rich. Now, the thing about South Sudan is that it's the newest independent country in the world, and its independence seemed to be ending, or people hoped ending, it would end a civil war that had gone on for a generation. And it's looking very much as if war is returning to South Sudan, which is the most, awfully deprived place.
You're not our optimism correspondent, are you?
Well, there's other stuff,
Jeremy?
cheery stuff I'd like to talk about.
Could we talk about Strictly, for heaven's sake?
We're going to talk about Strictly.
Let's talk about Strictly.
Well, I don't particularly... Well, no.
I have saved a huge amount of money because I would have put it all on the wonderful Susanna Reid to win, and
She did very well.
She came third.
She did very well, yeah.
Brilliantly, yeah.
I think the fascinating thing about all of this is that I know Rory's done it. I certainly have no intention of doing it.
Go on.
Fancy
I have
Vince
talked to them a few times. Yeah.
And Vince
has done it, and Peter Mandelson, I think, yeah, I'd love to do that.
Hasn't done it.
You know, well, he'd love sequins and stuff. He's probably wearing them today.
But it's proper good family light entertainment show coming back and being enjoyed literally right across the nation. I'm quite worried. I actually stayed in last night and watched the final.
Well, why not?
Well, no, it's just that.
I mean, the quality, though.
I mean,
But they dance brilliantly. They dance brilliantly. Abby was a brilliant
Not
dancer.
just the dancers. Think of that band, week after week, live. It's brilliant.
And the whole production
brilliantly
of it.
produced.
Full credit to the B-Boys.
No,
It's a
fabulous.
great show.
From family entertainment to another kind of family entertainment, cricket. I
Yes.
think
Oh, my
you're
goodness.
all
What
very,
we
very
demand.
exercised.
Graham
Talk about this.
Swan.
Yeah.
Graham Swan, England's hero once.
Unbelievable.
But he has, with 2 Ashes tests to go, but the Ashes gone, he's called time on his career with immediate effect. It's someone else. It's time for someone else, he says, to enjoy the ride. This was the man who was hit for a record number of 6s, I think, in the last 3
2 tests
tests.
left.
Yes.
Yes.
He
And he's
shouldn't.
gone.
I think that maybe he's been told he's going to be dropped anyway, but the point is he should sign off at the end of the series, but not now.
I think the point is, if you've paid a lot of money to fly out to Australia to watch Graham Swan bowl, and he says, "No, I've had enough. Three tests."
You'd be
You would.
extremely hacked off.
You'd be hacked
And
off.
people will be hacked off.
It's been, of course, it's also a time of year we look back on those who've left us this year, and including the great Peter O'Toole.
Yes, Peter O'Toole. There's a lovely piece about the news review. It seems ages ago. It's only this week, I think, Peter O'Toole died.
Yeah.
And there's pieces all over the paper. Lovely quotes from him. He said the only exercise he took was walking behind the coffins of friends who took exercise, and that he missed the days where you go for a beer in a pub in Paris and wake up in Corsica.
No, that's a lovely
But there's a lovely view in the news review in the Sunday Times, and a great story from Sarah Standing, and she was just about to deliver a baby in hospital. In walked Peter O'Toole. He said he sat down on the bed, lit up a cigarette, and immediately ordered lunch. The nurses would come in to catch a glimpse of Peter O'Toole. And one of them said, "It might be a good idea to put that cigarette out, Mr. O'Toole. I'm a bit worried about the oxygen blowing up." He said, "Well, open a window."
Great man,
I
great
mean, he
man.
just,
and you've also lost, of course, Nelson Mandela, one of the great voices.
Oh, well, yes, indeed. I mean, you're going to talk to the actor later on.
Yes.
A lovely Mandela story. You know, remember Frank Dobson, the Health Secretary? And he met Mandela twice, and on the second occasion, Mandela came up to Frank Dobson and said, "Hello, Frank. Good to see you again." And Frank was so sort of chuffed and nonplussed, didn't know what to say. So there's an awkward silence, and Mandela said, "You do remember me, don't you, Frank?" So, yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you all for that wonderful paper review. And now to the weather. So far, the winter has proved to be